Welcome back to the Horse Racing Network with me, Izzy Phillips, and I'm joined by horse racing broadcaster and journalist Paul Auster as we take a look ahead to day two of Aintree's Grand National Festival. We've got three grade ones to look at this time. Paul, how are you feeling?
Well, I'm hoping that by the time Friday comes around, we're all already nicely ahead after those great selections we put up between us on Thursday. So we'll be all systems go for Friday, which is Ladies' Day as well. So there's going to be a huge crowd there too.
Absolutely. And I'm hopefully, like we said, we've looked at the weather in our day one preview. So if you haven't looked at day one already, go and check that out. But it looks like it's going to be a lovely sunny day. We should get some Liverpool fashion and hopefully, like you say, Paul, it will look great on the TV. Lots of fashion, lots of sunshine, lots of champagne and Pims, I'm sure, to bring in the spring. So we'll actually be kicking things off with the Mild May Novices Chase, where we've got a few horses, though, Paul, with a couple of double entries here. They're also entered into that Novices Chase we spoke about on day one. But one who I'd like to draw attention to, who hasn't got a double entry, and was one of my selections actually for the Cheltenham Festival, if you remember, Paul, but he never actually ran, and that was Butch for the Inform Ollie Murphy team. I think he's massively overpriced here at 25 to 1. The team have currently got a 36% strike rate, and he should have absolutely no concerns over good ground either. So he's a huge price here, which I can't quite get over. So I might even have a cheeky little anti-post go there. But who do you like in the race?
Well, I have to say that if Handstands goes for this race in preference for the shorter race, I think he will be a strong favourite. Ben Pauling has never shied away from the fact that he thinks this horse is just about top class. And when you look at his last run, where he actually beat Django Bay at Sandown over 2.5 miles in heavy ground, he just had a brilliant attitude. And of course, he's won over 3 miles as well in the past. He won a grade two back in December. So I think he's got a great deal going for him if he does show up. I suppose one or two people might have concerns about the ground being a touch quick, and I think the market will reflect whether or not there is any real concern about the ground for him. But amongst others that I'd see having a reasonable chance here, obviously Caldwell Potter, who won at Cheltenham just a few weeks ago. He would have to have a big chance as well if he does run. But there is one horse I think that could go well at a better price if he turns up, and that's Stellar Story, Gordon Elliott's runner. He was second in the old RSA chase to Lecky Watson. It was a bit of a shock result, the 1-2 there. But he's a rock solid horse, I think. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if he were to go well. But I think he'd want just a little bit of juice in the ground. But to be honest, if Handstand turns up, he'd be the one for me.
You've got to think that Stella Story would have a fantastic chance over 3 Mile as well. Whenever I think of Stella Story, I always go back to him reeling in the jukebox man at the Cheltenham Festival. What was that last year now? But yeah, fantastic over 3 miles, Stella Story. So certainly one to take seriously. And like you say, Caldwell Potter out to keep adding to that prize money fund to justify that big price tag.
Huge
Right,
price.
a huge price. But next up, we have the Novices Hurdle race. And this looks a bit of an interesting one, Paul, because it's kind of what I would call the runners up of the Supreme Novices Hurdle. So no lovely Copector boards in here for this one, but we have got the likes of Romeo Coolio for the Gordon Elliott team, Salvatore Mundi for Mullins, and in here as well, who was a non-runner at the Cheltenham Festival, is Tripoli Flyer for Fergal O'Brien. Now, since the Cheltenham Festival, Fergal O'Brien has found himself in, no pun intended, flying form. So, could Tripoli Flyer really make the difference here after coming into the race fresh in comparison to Romeo Coolio and Salvatore Mundi, who've obviously run in that Supreme?
Well, he's the one that I've got on my notes here as the one with a star next to his name, Tripoli Flyer, because, he's going to be that little bit fresher. He's a horse that's got plenty of class. And I just wouldn't be at all surprised to see him run a very, very big race. And as you pointed out, the stable couldn't really be in much better form. So I think there's every chance he's going to, put a very big effort indeed, Tripoli Flyer. Romeo Coolio obviously is the Cheltenham form horse. He ran very well there. I've got to say, for me, it's one of the weaker grade ones of the week. Not a race that I will be getting too involved in, with the exception of Tripoli Flyer, because I do think that he's got plenty going for him in this particular event, and um, I think he's going to be the one to beat at a fair each way price as well at the moment.
He he runs kind of on good to soft ground, doesn't he? So if they do water a little bit, it's not like he's a heavy ground horse. He could have something to say here, and shouldn't have too many difficulties with the better weather. So it could be a little bit of a langer dang once they get the sun on their back. They absolutely love it. So he might have just dodged a bit of a gloomy Cheltenham for a sunny Aintree.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
it's also worth pointing out as well with regard to the ground that I think they'll be very, very keen to make sure the ground is safe. So if there isn't any rain in the days coming up to the festival, even though there's every argument for saying the good ground horses have been waiting for good ground, so why should you water? This is their time of year. But the racecourse executive will be concerned to make sure that in the event that any horses fall, it won't be too firm for them and at the risk of injuries. So in order to mitigate, they'll be putting some water on the track, I suspect, and that little bit of juice in the ground won't be a problem for any horse. So certainly for Tripoli Flyer, I think it'll be about right for him.
Yes, and obviously we will be talking about the Grand National in our day three preview, but you are quite right. I have a feeling that Grand National course, especially, they will want to make sure it's watered so that it's safe. Before we start to think about Grand National, though, Paul, we've got one more race to look at here, and that's the Melling Chase. And I feel like you know what I'm already going to say because I'm still captaining the John Bon fan club. I know we both said in our Cheltenham Festival review that we felt that he ran incredibly well to finish second, despite that kind of shuddering error in the Champion Chase. And we also spoke about the fact that maybe he doesn't love Cheltenham so much, but Aintree, he definitely does. And I don't see him losing this. This is his to win. I know I said it about the Champion Chase, but I kind of feel like I'm saying now you've got to just trust us that he actually will win this one. Um, John Bon all the way for me, Paul. What about you?
Well, he's forecast to be odds on, is he? So a lot of people will have him as their banker of the week. And he won it last year. So, we know he's a course and distance horse. We know the ground should be absolutely fine for him. He goes on a decent surface. For me, we pointed out how well he ran to finish second, but the other flip side of that is that he had to work really hard to get up for second in the end. And the question is, has that race left a mark on him after just over a 3-week turnaround? We'll find out. There's good horses against him. I mean, Gaelic Warrior at this trip could be a big danger if he decides to put his best foot forward, but he's not a horse I'd like to risk my money or yours on. I think that there's an each way angle in this race, and that is Henry de Bromhead's horse, Heart Wood, who was second to Factor File in the Ryanair. You take Factor File out of the race, who I think was an exceptional winner, and Heartwood was best of the rest. He'd previously been fourth to Galopin de Champ at Leopardstown over 3 miles, and he is a very good horse. He's only got £6 to find with Jean Bon on official figures, and so if Jean Bon makes just one mistake, that's enough to knock a £5 difference. So I think at around 6 to 1 or thereabouts, Heartwood for those wanting to take on John Bon, who is not going to be easy to beat. But if there is one that could beat him on this kind of ground, I think Heartwood is the one.
The current outsider of the whole field, Paul, is Liberty Hunter. Now, obviously, I know he fell in the end in that Champion Chase. I still feel he should have gone for the Grand Annual, mainly because I had a good bet on him at a good price. But he could potentially have something to say here. Interesting for him up in trip. He's never ever gone this distance before. Very, very big price at 50 to 1 currently around those odds. And a race that could still cut up a little bit more than this, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could cut up, and if he takes his chance, then good luck to him. I don't think he'll stay at this level. I think if you were gonna try him over 2.5 miles, they should have tried him maybe at a slightly lower level just to test the waters, but maybe they feel he really does stay and they're prepared to get in there and get a nice chunk of prize money, so, the 50 to 1 might be, worth a dabble, but, I'm sticking with Heartwood.
Absolutely. So we have reviewed three of those grade ones on day two of Aintree's Grand National Festival. Paul, are there any other races that you want to take a look at, or any other horses that you want to give a shout out for on the shortlist for day two?
Yeah, well, for a lot of people, the spectacle on each of the 3 days, regardless of the class of the Grade 1 events, those races over the Grand National fences. And on day 1, it's the Fox Hunters, which is always a minefield for punters. It's very hard to equate the form from, point to points and hunter chases and everything else. But on day 2, the 405 at Aintree is the Topham Chase. And this is over 2 miles, 5 furlongs, a lap and a bit of the Grand National course. And it sees a rematch of last year's first and second, Arizona Cardinal and James de Burley. And if they both take the chance, it'll be a really good head to head because they both put in a terrific performance last year. There was only a length between them, and they're pretty much at similar weights. Once again, I don't think there's any change in the weights, but there was, well, a couple I think that are of some interest if they do run at decent prices. One is Eldorado Allen, who's into the veteran stage now for Joe Tizard. And you may remember him running in the Grand National last year, and he actually took up the running at the Canal Turn second time around, and he only sort of began to fade going to the third laps before the Melling Road. So back over this trip, he put up a great exhibition of jumping, I thought, until he got tired. Over this trip, a 25 to 1 chance, he would be one I will give a little bit of a squeak to. And the other one at a very big price, if it runs, is Mars Harper for Gordon Elliott, about 33 to 1, probably bigger in places. This one was fourth in the Festival Plate at Aintree and at Cheltenham rather, and he's a horse that I could very well see staying on at the finish here, Mars Harper, and he's going to have a very handy weight as well. So those would be my two against the field in the Topham Trophy on Friday.
Lovely big price for Mars Harper. There's one in here that I quite like the look of, Paul, and I think he's really got his jumping in check in his recent races, and I like the look of Bad
Mm.
for Ben Pauling. I love him. He's a grey, beautiful galloping grey, and his last two performances, he's really sort of seemed to get himself in check. So I'd love to see him take this on, and I think quite exciting. There's certainly a couple in here that are sort of a few fan favorites. You've got the likes of Ginny's Destiny and
Yeah.
the likes of that are in here as well that I know that, and the Goffer who have been very popular in recent years. So it'd be a very good race, a very interesting race. And like you say, the spectacle of the national fences, there is absolutely nothing like it. But that is all we have time for on our day two Aintree Grand National Festival preview. Don't forget to go and like and subscribe so that you keep up to date with all of our previews and reviews of all the racing. And good luck with all your selections.